You can start.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Yo, what is good, everybody? It is another beautiful day here at THPStrength.com podcast. It is episode 18. Oh, baby. 18 episodes. Can you believe that? Today, we have a special guest. His name is Christopher John, aka CJ Champion on Instagram. You've probably seen him before, slamming jamming on Instagram and YouTube. We're also going to have this episode on YouTube. It's going to be on John Evans' YouTube channel. I'm going to put his YouTube channel in the show notes, so be on the lookout for that. It's going to be dope. Y'all can see our beautiful faces talking about anything and everything that has to do with jump training.
You can see some very low quality videos of me practicing speed jumping.
And yeah, today's we're gonna be talking all about CJ's journey in this crazy dunk world, and we're also gonna touch on back pain. We're gonna go into depth and explain all the research that we know about it and how to prevent it. CJ's personal experience. I mean, I think we've all had experiences with low back pain here on this podcast. I don't know, John, have you had experience with low back pain?
Yeah, when I was 14, I actually had a really bad low back pain. That's part of the reason why I don't have any lumbar flexion in my spine. Is I was high jumping too much, and mine was really bad. Like my back pain honestly is probably worse than both of yours. Like I have multiple herniated discs and sciatica and way bigger problems than you guys, but I've managed them very well. So I can talk about my experience with that too. But
I just didn't know that John had that. Jeez.
Yeah, my body is a mess. That started. Yeah, that was the first big injury I ever had. And by the way, I think we should just interrupt each other. If the audio cuts out, it cuts out. But sorry, we're trying Skype for the audio instead of FaceTime, so this will be different. But the first big injury that I had was that back injury, and I mean it put me out for a while. Like it started with back spasms. So like my back, basically the muscles would lock up, and it was like this sharp shooting pain that would like take my breath away. And eventually I jumped through that. There was one day specifically where I jumped all day, high jumping, and then I went to an all-night. No, I lifted in the morning, then I high jumped for multiple hours, so way too many jumps. I was like 15. And then I went to an all-night volleyball tournament because my friend was having it at one of the local churches. So I went and played volleyball all night and jumped all night off 2 feet. And I woke up the next morning and like my back was destroyed. I could not walk. And then I did a herniated another disc trying to deep squat when I wasn't mobile when I was 17. That one was bad. I couldn't walk either. So I've really messed up my back a lot of times. And a lot of it is related to mobility and movement quality in your hips. So I can definitely talk about that. But it's funny, people don't know this stuff and then they make assumptions about me and my training, and it's like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, John, I feel like you've gone through every and any injury that exists.
Any jump related injury I've basically had. I mean, I'm like the worst case scenario. I probably have the most considerations out of any athlete in terms of like being able to program systematically, but also take all of those things into consideration. But I mean, I always said this at the time, but I was like, it'll make me a better coach. It'll make me a better athlete. It'll make me a better person. And honestly, I think it has. I mean, it's taught me a lot just like through my experiences. I don't really talk about my experiences that much, which is so funny. The other day, Jose Alvarez sends me a DM. He's one of our athletes, and it's me dunking on like the 9.998 hoop. I don't even know what it is. It's low. And I'm like, I am head at rim. Like, honestly, I remember that day. Like, you can watch the video, maybe angles, whatever. But I did a throw-in. I've never done a throw-in in my life. And the rim's low. I was jumping well. And he like sees the video and he's like, what the heck? He's like, I didn't know you had bounce like this. You always talk yourself down like you you're not an athlete. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
that reminds me of when I'll randomly tell you, like, yo, John, you're actually like athletic. I forget.
It's like this common thing you guys forget. And then like, because I'm pretty careful about what I do. Like, I don't push crazy hard. I do sometimes, and some things I pick and choose what I push in because I know my body well, I understand training, whatever else. And then I like get on the track with you guys, or I get into a session with you guys, or like in sessions, I'm never going to impress you. But overall, as an athlete, like you get on a football field with me, if you are going to watch me do plyos, if you're going to watch me do Olympic lifts or strength work, and then you're trying to compete with me in that stuff, then it's like, oh, wait, actually, he's really good at like some stuff that he actually like doesn't really post or doesn't really show. Because I mean, usually it's all like monitoring.
When it comes to a dunk session, like if you are hitting new stuff for yourself, I always get hype. Like that's one thing with me in dunk sessions. Like I love progress, and if I know what skill level you're at and I know that you hit something new, like for you, like I get hyped. Like that could be if there's someone that's rim grazing or something and they hit a two-hander for their first time, like I'm gonna be there like screaming when you do that. So
I mean,
I think that's the beauty of like dunking.
yeah, it took me a long time to figure out what like I had to learn about dunking for a long time before I got to a point where like I could even start using my vertical and understanding what dunks I needed to do and what I needed to work on, because I didn't have the same background that you guys did. My background was mostly in high jump, and I dunked sometimes, but only ever on 10 foot. I never low rimmed. And
Yeah.
I'm good at doing the thing I practiced all the time, which is like 1 foot jumping on 10 foot, putting down one handers. That's like what I got good at. So now it's very different when I'm trying to do windmills in between the legs and stuff that I never repped out as a kid, and have maybe 1/1000th the volume that you guys have, or of the skill work that you guys have in that stuff. And I'm improving, I'm getting better, but I honestly do need more low rim sessions, and I don't tap into my vertical on those technical dunks like I do on one handers or lobs or anything like that. And I suck at lobs, so I don't know. It's just
That differentiates like the elite guys versus like the more like amateur dunkers is the really good guys can do trick dunks while using their entire vertical. Like I remember when I was first trying between the legs, like I wouldn't jump as high on a between the legs as I did on a one-hander and stuff like that. But as I got better, like I can get basically I can use my whole vertical. Like I'll jump, let's say my max jump for the day is 46 inches. I can hit 44, 45 on a between the legs.
Yeah. I really should, like, honestly, I should just work on 2 foot, because I think I would be good at 2 foot if I worked on it, but I just don't. But this isn't about me. This is about CJ. So we could talk about that for a while.
Bringing it back, just because like just to remind you guys, we're talking about back pain and stuff like that. We'll go into depth a little bit later, but basically I've experienced back pain a lot as well.
So we're gonna start with CJ. I guess the question will be, CJ, tell us about your progression. How did you get into dunking, and what was your progression like through high school and getting that first dunk?
Okay. So as I guess pretty young, at a young age, I would dunk on a low rim, as most professional dunkers, from watching things from like I remember NBA Street Ball Volume 2 specifically. They had a lot of cool dunks in that game, and I would go recreate that outside in a low hoop. And then coming up to about middle school, Team Flight Brothers was posting videos. So that's where I started to get some inspiration as well. But high school was a big thing because I never made my basketball team. I wasn't athletic. I was pretty short and I was really skinny. And I actually have a video here. I'll get into that. But I wasn't too interested on making my game, I guess, a lot better. And I had other interests. So, for example, I got into like video editing, and I ended up becoming the team videographer for my varsity team, which they won states. Nick Briz was on that team. I went to high school with Nick Briz. And
real quick, a lot of people do not know that, and it's like this amazing detail. Like it's like all the worlds collide, and people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, you know Nick?" Blah, blah. I'm like, I know of Nick. We've talked sometimes, like via Instagram or whatever, but like I don't know him. And it's so funny that you went to high school with him and filmed him.
And honestly, it was a lot of fun too. He was pretty good. I didn't like. I remember even like in tryouts and stuff where we had specifically we'd get to play against each other after school, and I didn't go as much as I should have. But I remember one time I was too scared to guard him, and I had to, and he blew past me like it was nothing. Anyway, he was fast back then. But so getting into it, I was jumping a lot, like low rims and stuff. Again, I wasn't that athletic. I wasn't really working out too much. When I did go to the gym during the summer, like 10th, 11th grade, I was going with my dad at like Planet Fitness, and we were doing very basic stuff. So I wasn't really doing so well in terms of jumping high. I remember touching backboard in 9th grade. End of 10th grade, I think I grazed the bottom of the rim one time. 11th grade, not much progress. 12th grade, I remember I had a basketball class in 12th grade, and that's when I started jumping a lot more, and I was probably getting about here. So in about, I want to say, maybe a little bit after January. I don't think you guys can see this, but I have a video that I just found of me trying to dunk on a 10-foot hoop. I'm gonna show it for the people on Skype. and that's a lob and me.
Oh, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, if you
That's
could see
cool.
it up close, I'm really, really, really skinny too. So I got about like here, and that was in I think that was in January, but a few months later, I
Is
believe
this
it
your,
was.
is this your senior year?
Yeah, this is my senior year. Sorry, this is my senior year. So this is 2013. So now I want to say, moving forward, we're coming up to my first dunk, and I believe it was in March, sometime in March. So it was weird because I didn't make any progress. Like I wasn't jumping and like grabbing rim or anything. And it was there was a student faculty game, so like all the basketball players were there. A lot of people from the school were there. And I got to like, I guess, show out in front of my friends and my teammates or the people on the basketball squad. And they were like really high and mighty in my mind. So I was like, I want to try and look cool out there. Right. So it was in warm ups. I just decided I'd go up and try it and actually like destroyed it off the dribble. So that was like all adrenaline, all hype. And
Yo, adrenaline jumper from the beginning.
yeah, yeah. And then I don't think I could dunk again until like a few months later. But anyway, so that was the start. And once I dunked, I was like so hooked on wanting to get better. Um so after that summer
Wait,
came and I went to.
before you go on a little more, I just want to say that CJ's progress is actually insane. Because if you think about it, that was 2013. He went from hitting his first dunk to being in the finals at Dunk League in 4 years, which
Yeah,
is like,
that's cool. That's cool to think about. I didn't see it that way.
so that's
So
that's for all y'all young bloods out there, all right, that are trying to get their first dunk. In 4 years, you could be at the top, all right.
There was no genetics involved. Zero.
yeah. So yeah, and what was funny too is the way I worked out after that. It was very basic with no real understanding of how certain things work. My form was never that good. My leg workouts, which would be like 1 or 2 times a week, would be like I would leg press and I would do lunges, and I would do it as hard as I could. And then I would take a few days off to rest and whatnot, and then probably play basketball and jump. And eventually, a year later, about a year later, a year and a half maybe, I got my first windmill. And once I hit the windmill, it was like, okay, everything I'm doing, let's put it like into getting my vert up and jumping higher and dunking. And I was all in at that point, and I wanted to be. I felt like I was a really good jumper at that point because I wasn't really watching too much social media. I wasn't seeing how all the kids were really jumping at the time. And I just thought I was like, you know what, I'm the man right now.
That's what Isaiah thought too. Isaiah thought he was whoo, big shot.
I had that moment when I hit my first between the legs. When I hit my first between the legs, I was like, all right, I'm like leveled up. And I remember I got really CJ was actually the motivation for me trying to hit my between the legs because like I think I met CJ like December of 2015, I want to say, or no, 2014. And I wasn't able, this was like shortly after I hit my first windmill. And then CJ has a video on his Instagram of his first East bait. And like, if you go watch it, it's literally just pure energy. Like he hits it, CJ gets hype, and then Hunter's there, like hyping him up. And Hunter, by the way, if you don't know him, he was a hype man. Like in a lot of our old videos, he was always like hyping it up and stuff. But, yeah, like just seeing that energy, and I was like, "Whoa, I want to feel that." Like I need to hit this between the legs. So I remember that like because that was around the first time when we met was when you hit your first BTO.
That was November 23rd, 2014. That was first BTL for me. So,
Wow.
and I think I could tell you when we met.
Because I think we had like a shout out for shout out. I remember that on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, you guys were those kids. That was your generation.
CJ is like one of only 2 shout out for shout outs I've ever done, by the way.
Hey, shout out for shout out, Isaiah. I'll shout you out. You shout me out. We'll tag each other today. That never happens.
Yeah,
we never tag each other on Instagram. I was doing my ISOs there, by the way, guys. FYI, just so you both know, I'm staying up on them. I lifted today, trying to get them knees healthy. I have a high jump coach now. Kind of a big deal.
Question, because I forgot. After you have a dunk session, is it a good idea to do ISOs and when?
So I like to. I think I keep it to 1 or 2 sets at a time, and I just do them periodically throughout the day. So usually when I start to feel that knee pain climb up a little bit after the session, that's when I'll hit them. and they'll climb back down. And then if I feel it climb back up, I'll just hit one set at a time, basically. I do them until the pain goes down. That's like really what I do. My knees feel better, and then I come back to them later in the day. A lot of the time, that is how I do my ISOs.
Me and CJ are fresh off of dunk sessions right now, by the way. Podcast.
And I just lifted, so it's like all of us are like post session, like coming down, like talking about.
Bro, I haven't felt this feeling of like this is for all y'all that have dunk sessions out there. You probably relate to this, but like the whole day is just like, ugh, like just super sluggish. Especially if you went off like the more jump, because I was just outdoors. I mean, that's probably how most people are right now, like outdoors in the sun, and like it just drains you.
It is so hot in Florida. Okay, it's not as hot as it was last week, but today it was not bad. But if you go all out to where you can't jump anymore while it's this hot outside, Zay, you're gonna be done like till tomorrow. You're not gonna move tomorrow.
Yeah. CJ was supposed to go to bed early so he could wake up this morning and work out, and instead he ended up just being a spectator in a debate between Billy Dunkademics and myself, Billy Duran, about vertical leap. And I mean, honestly, Billy still thinks I'm wrong. I still think he's wrong, but we hugged it out. We sent each other some gifts, and we're just deciding not to talk about it anymore. But the debate was basically about who has a higher vertical, high jumpers or dunkers. And I was saying consistently, if you look at the data, we have a lot on high jumpers from even the 90s. And I was like, they jump higher. They have more center of mass displacement, which is more objective measure. And there's a regression equation that you can use to calculate what the conversion is, and high jumpers on a jump and running or jump and touch test would hit over 50. The best in the world would hit over 50, like Mutaz Barsham. The people that are jumping like 238, which is 238 plus, would consistently do that. And I was just arguing
that's
for
like,
that.
That's point. Like 7 feet, right? That's like
so 245 is 8 feet. 2.5 about 2.5 centimeters is an inch. So if you did, what would that be? So 240 would be like 711. Wait, is that right? 2.54.
That'd be like 710.
Oh yeah, you're right. So 710. So yeah, every 5 centimeters is about 2 inches. So 7.8 is like 235-ish, 234. 230 is like 7.6, 7.5, around that pace. Around that.
I think high jump over like that high 7 feet range. That's like insane to me.
So what I told him this too, is I was like, just go ahead and try to jump. Like, look at the best dunkers and tell me if they can jump over people 7 feet tall without a push off or anything else. I was like, how often do you see that? I was like, it doesn't happen. Like, very rarely does that happen. I was like, now add another foot to that.
I tried it in Riga.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just got in this big debate, and if you understand biomechanics and you understand center of mass, you understand 3D motion analysis, you have to jump to high jump. I mean, it's common. But Billy was saying, yeah, but Burtek is a skill, and he's right. And I was basically saying, I was like, high jumpers would on their best jumps do that, but I was like, you gotta understand that's best case scenario, their best jumps ever. Like, their cluster might be a little lower than that, but if you're analyzing their best jumps ever consistently, that's what they're capable of doing. And the best in the world could consistently hit over 50 on most competition days. And I was just, saying these things objectively, and Billy was like, yeah, well, why don't they do it on a Vertec? And I was like, they just wouldn't. They wouldn't do that. It's scary. Bro, like, run, do a full sprint and jump as high as you can. Like, I was like, land on the ground.
A rich millionaire needs to like invest money into like a Vertec, or like get lasers and do height checks, something, a competition that can be regulated of like, and get all the highest jumpers on the planet. Like, pay them all $5,000. Pay them all $5,000 and just get people to like get pro dunkers there, like the high jumper, like all these elite technical dudes, and just have a jump off, like see who can get the highest.
You have to jimmy rig a way to get a ball to hang down from a string and have it extended out several feet, and then you can have like a pit or a mat or something to land on, so people, like a big pit or mat, and you would just go up, jump as high as you can, try to hit your head on the ball, and you could, I mean, if you wanted, I mean, you'd have to. And then what they'd have to do is 3D motion analysis. And what I was wrong about last night, but I was talking about today, was that 3D motion analysis is more objective. It'll give you closer measures to what a force plate would give you. And Hollis Conway has hit 41 inches on 3D motion analysis. And then you take that value and you convert it to a jump and touch test, or a Vertec, or whatever you want to call it. And 41 inches on a force plate is like unheard of. Like, I think Zion's like at 30 or something like that on a force plate. Like, wow. Like that's, I think he's at 32.
Zion tested 40, right? On the Vertec?
or 42 on a Vertec or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the exact conversion, but like if you hit like 36 on a force plate or 30, even 33 on a first force plate is like insanely high if you're hitting that, like, because that's as soon as your toe leaves the ground. So you have the whole height of your foot. You can add in the whole height of your foot, the length of your foot as well to whatever your Vertec number is, because you measure your standing reach, flat footed. So add in all the way to plantar flexion. I mean, that could be 8 inches right there. So if you have a 33 and you add in the length of your foot, maybe it's a foot long, then you might have a 45-inch vertical, but you hit a 33 on a force plate or 3D motion analysis. So, if you're hitting 41 on a force plate or on 3D motion analysis, I mean, you're well over 50 on 3D, on the conversion, basically. So, for example, this kid Jonas, who did a Vertec test, his Vertec test, I think, was like 108 or something like that. And that was on his tippy toes. And then he did, on the 3D motion analysis, it was 76 centimeters. So that's like 30 centimeters or so, which is 15 inches. That's 14 inches or something like that. The 14 more inches. So if he had a 41-inch vertical on a 3D motion analysis, add 14 inches to that, or even just say 12, he's a 53 inches. Like, that's insane. And like Billy was like, nah, it's different. It's high jump. It's different. I'm like, you're right. It is different. No high jumper is going to do a Vertec test. Like, they're not going to do it. And I asked all my high jump friends.
A 3D motion analysis, like jump off.
I asked all of my high jump friends, and they were like, no, we're not doing that. They were like, CJ just blasted off. They were like, no, we're not doing it. We're just not going to do it. And Billy and I got in this big argument, and it was really stupid. And I'm never going to lose a friend over something that dumb. But it really was that the reason I think we were more arguing is that we didn't really respect each other's opinion. Even though I was like, we can agree to disagree, Billy was like, K. And then he pulled an old text message up, and I was like, Billy, stop it. Like, just quit it. It's over.
It was fun. It was fun to watch all that.
That's why CJ didn't train early this morning. Side note. Anyways, we could do a whole podcast on that. Maybe we'll include a little bit of details on that after this. But CJ, back to your story. We got you doing a windmill, I think, is where you're at in the story. And what happened next?
We're gonna actually fast forward up to my best years. So basically, I kept up that sort of training, and I might have included some new exercises like deadlifts, which I never did correctly. Yeah, and I would keep increasing like majorly, all the way up to about January of 2017. That's where I hit my peak, and that peak stayed all the way through August of 2017. So that was like Kilgannon came down to Florida. We had big sessions. That was also Dunk League. I'm gonna also include Riga, Kings of Air, and then after that point, I think I got a little bit inconsistent with training. And things just started to kind of deteriorate. Like, I was going up and down with knee pain and back pain. Those were the two big things that I remember having. And I couldn't like stay on a road where I was maintaining a certain height. And things were just kind of.
Sorry, it cut out for a second there, CJ. Hold up. Can you hear him, Isaiah?
I want to say.
Oh, there we go. Now we can hear you.
Yeah, it cut out for a second there. So you said I couldn't stay on a trajectory, and then it cut out. We didn't hear the rest.
Okay. Yeah, I was just having a lot of troubles, basically. And that leads to, I guess, fast forward like 2 years later, around 2018, 2019, is when I got in touch with you, John. Actually, it was the first dunk camp when I saw you for the first time, and then you kind of gave your presentation about knee pain. It was a really quick presentation, and then that's what kind of got me hooked, and I started doing that sort of.
I just want to pause on that point. This is one of my pet peeves. John gave one of the greatest presentations of all time about knee pain at dunk camp, and I think like half the people didn't even like sit down and listen to it. It was like really disrespectful. And what is half the people that weren't there, those same people ended up getting knee pain. And
shout out Barth. Shout out Barth not going.
No, shout out to CJ though, because he was there and he was actually taking like super good and detailed notes during that podcast. I mean that presentation. So
that presentation. What'd you say, CJ?
I wrote down everything from the fact that you told us we had to wait exactly like I think it was 2 minutes between sets and things like that. And that stuck. That was a big thing that stuck. And I remember when you told us when you were with us like 2 years later, like, oh yeah, you don't have to wait 2 minutes between. We were like,
Yeah, you have waiting 2 minutes in between sets like that whole time.
Oh, that's so funny. I forgot about that. So, I mean, that's a research thing. Like, we did that because in research, or I gave that recommendation purely out of research, Nemerty Rios research. And I mean, that lecture, just looking at that whole thing, I mean, that presentation, dude, it gives me chill. I killed that presentation. Like, it was funny. It was entertaining. My PowerPoint was good. Like, it was one of the best presentations I've ever done in my entire life. I practiced it a ton. The slideshow again was I worked on it so many hours. I had specific notes at each point. I pulled Isaiah out of the crowd and gave examples and asked people questions. Like, it was, the delivery of it was really good. It was all research based, and I just, like, no one got it on film, and I was really upset throughout the week because, like, every day I was supposed to do it the first day, and then every day I kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, which, like, at first I didn't really care about. But I was really excited to give the lecture, and no one knew who I was. So no one respected me at the camp at all, which was like, I had this big chip on my shoulder already, and I'm eager to give this presentation and blow people's minds. And I can't really do that. I'm not really getting the platform to do that. And then no one was, by the end of the camp, everyone was so centrally, like, their nervous system, their brain was so fatigued that no one could take in information. Everyone was just wiped out. And so I'm just getting, like, a little bit more irritable every day because I had paid to come out. I was like, Barth was nice enough. This is how Barth and I met. We shared a room for the first dunk camp. Shout out Andy for hooking us up with that connection. Barth talked about dunking more than I ever cared to know about, but I was, like, pissy during it. I had just torn my labrum. So I was taking off work. So I was losing a ton of money because I was taking off work. I used all my, like, PTO days to come out and lecture. And, like, it was a risk for me to do that. I had to pay for the flight out and back. I had to pay for all my food while I was there. Or no, I think Andy might have caught me for food. I don't remember, but it was a big risk. I just remember it being a big risk, and I was really upset. Like, I basically accepted it, but every day that it would get pushed back, and this is nothing against Andy. It was the very first camp ever. Like, this is 2 years ago. I was even more immature than I am now. And I just, like, I remember getting that lecture, and shout out Tyler Ray. He was so big and just, like, emotionally helping me through that experience because he could see how stressed and anxious I was about it. And so I got to the lecture and I was just like, I don't care. Like, it's the very last thing. Honestly, it was the last thing in the entire camp. Like, it was the very last thing other than the dunk show. And half the people were outside and didn't even attend. And at first I was mad, but I was just like, you know what? I don't care. Like, I'm just going to kill this. I'm going to deliver. I'm going to do everything I can. A couple times in the camp, people had called me out to, like, just present things or do things at certain times, and I was not prepared for it. Like, there was no real, like, instruction or organization in that sense. And later on, I kind of figured that out and understood the camp, and it was easier for me to coach and stuff, but it was hard to coach other people's methods. Like, that was weird for me because I'm like, oh, maybe I don't agree with that, but you want me to coach it? I don't know if I can do that. So Ricky, there was a bunch of weird stuff. But anyways, I gave the lecture, I killed it. And half the people didn't pay attention. We talked about this, but they only took away one thing, which is isometrics. And it was like, what? It was like, what in the world? And so CJ, is that what made you trust me? Was that presentation? Like, what? I don't even know what you were thinking at the time. I have no idea.
I mean, at the time, I was trying to do my own things to get my knees right. And somehow I did it well enough on my own to be ready for that camp specifically. But anyway, fast forward a little bit later. First dunk camp was great. Months down the road, I am declining more and more because I'm getting, what is it? Quadricep femoral syndrome, something like that.
I think you either had, so now we kind of know this, it's either patellofemoral pain, or which is kind of like, it could be a number of things what actually causes the pain, but could be chondromalacia. Could be chondromalacia, could be a couple other things, but we thought at the time it was quad tendon pain. But CJ's tendon, your quad tendon was not responding the way that quad tendinopathy responds. So it seemed, now looking back, that it was more patellofemoral pain. So, and I've had a lot of conversations with Ebony and discussions with her to figure out kind of like what's actually going on and what wasn't going on. But yeah, I mean, you can pick up there with, I guess it was getting worse and you reached out to me. I don't know.
Yeah, this is so many months later. Even this was probably like maybe 4 or 5 months before Dunk Camp 2. And it was at the point where it was like, okay, nothing's working. I need help. I'm not jumping well right now. It hurts. And I just need to like restart. And so I got in contact with you, and basically you had me do like a full restart. We worked from square one, which was like it took square one was trying to figure out what would work for me to help improve this knee, because like things like slow squats weren't doing anything, and we had to figure out even like I'm used to doing leg press, so he had me on leg press, but I didn't know how like far back I was able to go, how much weight I was able to use. So starting from like we had to change so many things in a few weeks. But eventually we found something, and I was able to start progressing, and then you were able to start putting me through different exercises, and then I was able to start getting my explosiveness back. So I probably went from like having, I don't know, I probably had like a 32, 34-inch vertical. I was just barely dunking at one point. Once you were able to get me to start jumping again, the vertical was really, really low. And then as sessions would go, I progressively probably worked up to, I'd say a 44, because Dunk Camp 2, I recorded was it just under 44? It was like maybe it was a 42. I can't remember. One of those.
Yeah, it wasn't a super testing day. I remember not being happy with it. I was like, oh, that sucks. I wanted him to jump higher. But what's funny is like looking past that, because I wasn't with you for all those sessions, obviously. And then you started to have back pain, and we started to making considerations for your back pain, and we basically had to get to a point where a lot of it for you more than anything else was mental. And I've said this all the time. Like I told Isaiah, I was like, you need to get with him in the weight room. You need to be there with him. You need to help him through those sessions, because and I mean, this is I'm not taking a shot at you, but you definitely had problems being able to push through any sort of discomfort. You didn't know what was okay. And I think it was a learning thing. You just didn't know what was okay. You didn't know what was an okay acceptable amount of discomfort to push through. And I can tell you from experience that I push through a lot of discomfort, and there's times where it's not good and there's times where it's not bad, which makes it hard. But as an athlete, we basically had to get to a point where we just said, all right, screw it. Like we need to push. We need to lift hard if you want to improve. We can't just keep babying you the way that we are. And I don't remember if I had that conversation with you or what happened. I don't remember exactly. I just know that was a big thing. And I mean, your mental, like wherever you're at with your head and sports psych is how you're going to perform. I've realized that more than anything else. Like that's why today, before we got on the show, we were like, CJ had a session and he was like, oh yeah, I did okay. Like Isaiah and I was like, oh yeah, he did okay. He probably like hit 20 new dunks and it was probably insane. like good for CJ would be beating Isaiah. So it's just like, oh great. Like that's the standard that he has, which is fine. Like that's perfectly okay. But it's like, that's a really high bar, FYI. Like Isaiah's been training hard, pushing the weights and doing all that stuff for, I don't even know how long. And I would argue you're more genetically gifted than he is. You just haven't pushed into the training aspect of things nearly as far as he has. And that's no shot on Isaiah. Isaiah's gritting his teeth over there. He's like, yeah, well, F you. Now I'm playing. You guys are both super genetically gifted, but you're different athletes. And I think the reason Isaiah has been able to improve more recently is just because he pushes through things a little bit more. He jumps a little bit harder, more consistently, and things like that. So it's good for you guys to compete.
It's definitely a learning curve to like knowing how to push in the weight room, because like I mean I'm similar to you, John, in that like, because I've been lifting since I was like 15, and from the age of 15 it was like the mentality was like I was trying to get on the basketball team, and like weight room was one aspect where I could outperform everybody. So it was like,
yeah,
go hard, and like it's been bad for me a couple of times. I mean, we're gonna hit on back pain a little bit, but it's one of the reasons I've gotten back pain before, because I want to max out my deadlift when I'm not supposed to and like go as hard as possible, you know. But
it seems like CJ is more like, definitely CJ will baby it more than what you will. And it's funny because when you do push, you hit these massive PRs, and it's like, bro, where was that? By the way, I'm doing ISOs again. It was like, bro, where was that like 3 months ago? Like,
Okay, so let's get into back pain, because after Dunk Camp 2, I remember this is when I started to get some sort of back pain, and I was heading to England, and I was doing a bunch of shows over there, including we did Krasnimax with you, me, Connor, Maxwell Pierce, and
What'd you say, Isaiah?
That was a fun weekend. Krasnimax in Latvia.
Oh yeah, that was cool. That was fun to watch. I like that. Was I coaching Barth at the time? I think he was with Jordan. I don't remember. There's a stint where I was coaching Barth, but I don't think that was it. It was like
I think
spring.
that was right before he went to ATG. I think
Like,
that was like
okay, yeah. So like last winter and last spring, I was working with Barth to get his knees healthy. And
Oh wait, no, he was at ATG at that time. I remember him like working on his laptop while we were there.
Okay, yeah. So Barth had then went to Bounce Kit. We could talk about all this stupid stuff, but anyways, Barth went to Bounce Kit. Then he went to ATG. He was with Tyler for a little bit. Barth like bounced around a bunch until someone offered him a job. Is basically what happened. But yeah, now he's obviously freak level, jumping super high, and I think a lot of that is he applies a lot of what he learned from different camps, which I really respect. Do I think I could get Barth freakier than he'd ever been? You know, I'm not going to go into that. But anyways,
talk to him, dog.
No, I think Ben offered Barth a job, and Barth, you know, he had a position he could take, and I respect Barth a ton, and I wanted him to. I believe in myself. I believe in my own abilities the same way that all these other coaches do, and they believe in their program. But I think we've talked about it before. I think objectively, if you look at the information that I put out and the results that I deliver with elite guys, I'm really good at that. My job. I'm good with that population. I'm very good with elite jumpers. Like very good with elite bilateral jumpers. Working on the unilateral guys. I'm very good with developmental and unilateral guys. I'm working on elite.
CJ, he's becoming proof. Like
yeah.
The shit works.
So we go into I think that's enough said. Basically, he had an offered position, but it was fine. I supported Barth. Barth's a good friend of mine. We'll get him on the podcast eventually. It'll be good to talk about stuff and be respectful, agree to disagree, stuff like that. I'm more mature than I've ever been, I hope. And yeah, so CJ's back, is getting bad after Riga. Is that what it was?
It was after dunk camp. This was heading into going into England when I was staying with my girl, and yeah. So this is where we can start getting into probably. Can we talk about the one exercise that we could do every single day to help with back pain?
That's fine.
That's the book. I literally, for those of you that are listening, I held up a book. This is actually like the baby version of the really good book that he has, but it's called Back Mechanic, and it's by Stuart McGill. And Stuart McGill is basically the god of back pain.
There are certain people in every area of injury that have done more research and know you don't realize what you don't know until they start talking, and then you realize how dumb you actually are. Stu McGill is that person with back pain. Ebony Rio, Jill Cook are those people with tendon pain. There's someone for ACLs and stuff like that. Anyways, so when you're looking at who is the objective best in a field, I'm obsessed with that, because for me as a practitioner, I want to use the best modalities, and I want to figure out how can I take all these modalities and put them together so I can produce the best product on every single level, every single front, so I can get my athletes better. And it's easy, or easiest, not easy, maybe it's easier to find who those people are, find out who you trust, find out what the research is, find out how robust the research was and what they're doing and how high quality it is. It's like I talk about Formula One all the time. Formula One is like the pinnacle of what we're able to do in engineering, like a car to go fast. So I think about that in terms of the human body, and I'm like, who are these engineers? Like if I was a chef and I needed ingredients, I would want the best person for rice. I would want the best person for seafood. I would want the best person for whatever it is. And then I can make whatever meal I'm trying to make. That's how I view coaching. I'm like, man, I just want the best ingredients in my training. I want the best, and I want to put it together and make this crazy meal. So that's why we love Stu McGill. That's why we love what he does, and we take a lot of what he says and we apply it to our training. And it's not that we don't load, because I think a lot of people see that and they're like, oh, well, they probably don't lift. They probably don't. No, it's not that at all. Like we just understand the considerations. We understand load. We understand the risk, and we're willing to do certain things and take on associated risk in certain cases. And there's certain things that we're not going to do. So when we're looking at CJ and where he was at, it was, do I do this show? Do I not do this show? And I was like, well, what's your appearance fee? What are you going to get paid if you win? What's your cost benefit analysis? Are you going to get hurt? You're probably going to jump at home anyways. If you suck, you suck. You get an appearance fee. Like we'd kind of go through these pros and cons type scenarios and work through a lot of stuff. And I feel like it was probably pretty helpful at the time. I remember walking around Raleigh at the time, and I was having a discussion with him in the summer, being like, well, if you're going to go to Latvia, what was it again?
Could have been. I went to Berlin, I went to Latvia, and I also went to Prague.
Yeah, and I basically was like, look, this is the competitive phase. This was a big breakthrough for us as a coach-athlete relationship, was basically getting to a point where, one, you trusted me, And then, I mean, I was always listening to what you were saying. I think Isaiah, you would probably agree on this front. Is I take what you say and I work with you. I'm not the type of coach that's going to be like, you're doing this, like you are doing this. I mean, there's a time and place for that. Like there was a time and place where I said, all right, we've babied this for 6 months. We need to push. Like, and there was a time where I said, you're going to make $2,000 if you show up to the show, you know, or whatever. And that's going to be able to do X, Y, and Z for you. Is that associated risk? And we just made the decision to do that. So I think, I don't know. I mean, you can talk about that. What was that experience like for you as an athlete? Do you think that was the right thing to do for me as a coach? Did I overstep boundaries? What did you think?
No, we went over it really well. And considering what I was able to do as well, it basically worked out. And again, the big thing was my head, because I was thinking like my back hurts. I'm not practicing as much as I should. I don't have a nice court here. And the one time I did practice, I had like the worst session ever. But during that time, I did have a change of mentality. And as we talked about, of course, you helped like a bunch. But getting to the event, you basically told me we should do it. Let's go for it. And thankfully I did, because once I got to the event, the whole adrenaline thing kind of kicked in. I didn't feel my back when I was jumping, and I ended up doing decent for the events. I jumped super high at crossing box. Thankfully, that was cool. But that was all mental, and this was like my training hasn't been that strong that time because we were babying my back. I was really limited with a lot of exercises that I could do. But yeah, no, you were a big help at that point.
You technically beat me at that contest, and that was like me at my best, like my absolute best.
Did you miss a dunk or something, or what happened?
Yeah, 360 East Bay. I slipped like 3 times in a row. No, it was like 4 times I slipped. And yeah, and what was annoying about that contest is I hit it in warm-ups, like not trying, and then the competition just slipped like over and over again.
Added more speed, got to have better friction. I mean, honestly, like that was something. It was always fun. It's kind of fun as a coach to look and be like, "Oh, CJ's coming for Isaiah," or "Oh, Brody's about to compete with you guys." Like I love it. I love competition. I live for it. It's so fun. And I think for me, like obviously, I don't know if anyone else knows this, but I don't take anything off the table what these guys make. That's not how I function as a coach. I totally respect their hustle and what they're doing, and they've helped me in so many other ways, basically being, I guess, trusted and like respected. So I would never do that, especially whenever Isaiah was having a hard time paying rent. I was like, I'm not taking any money from him for that.
I almost had a gay joke.
You can't do that. We would maybe think about it, but since it's going on YouTube, we're trying to be more appropriate. And that's not PC at all. Love wins. It's 2020, baby. Anyways, so it was.
You can curse afterwards as long as it's not in the intro, and then you have to put in the video that there was curse words. Like before, like when you go to monetize it, you just have to click that there was light profanity. Heavy profanity is considered like dropping the F-bomb in the intro, but you can drop the F-bomb in the middle of the video.
Oh, perfect. That's good to know. Anyways, so it's always super fun to see you guys compete and go at it, and for me as a coach to kind of be watching from afar. I mean, the thing is, like, the reality is I don't get to watch these competitions. Like, I hear about it after the fact, and I basically don't care about it until I hear about it after the fact, or I get super hyped before.
They usually happen at like 3 a.m. in the States. Like,
so I would love the sport to get to a point where I would get to go and manage you guys on site. Like, I loved being at dunk camp was really cool before the dunk show, because at the time I was working with John. So I got to see you, Isaiah, you had just gotten back from Quay 54 and we were still managing your trainings. You didn't dunk a lot at the actual camp, but the show you were going to. CJ, I got to watch you warm up, and Jay Clark I was getting to watch as well. So I got to see the 3 of you guys along with a lot of other athletes like Jordan Canary, Tom Barnes.
Dunk League season 3. I'm even if they can't fly you out there, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm gonna fly you out there. Like,
boy. Well, I mean, hopefully, like I don't know how much we're allowed to talk about who's in it, who's not in it, whatever. But hopefully, we'll have both of you guys in it, and then maybe a third athlete potentially. I'm not sure who that would be, but
say it's happening, and it's happening soon.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens, but I'm excited about it. I hope it everything goes according to plan, and it was fun for me as a coach to be there, like I said, because I got to see you guys go through your warm up, and it was cool to see everything done exactly to a T, the way I wanted it. like I'm so, and they say this about like good chefs, but like we're almost like anal retentive. We're just like everything needs to be perfect. I can't have anything. Everything needs to be clean. The right ingredients need to be exactly the way they need to be. And if there's not the way it is, I'm gonna freak out. Like I would just like lose my mind. So seeing like the three of you guys all go through that warm up, seeing you guys get ready to go. CJ's dying about that, but I loved watching it and then seeing you guys in the show and perform and just being able to like sit back, cross my arms, and be like, I'm like a mad scientist. That was like the best part for me. So yeah, I'm just such a nerd about that stuff. So it's fun to see the outcome.
Just to finish the video out, let's go, I guess, into the process of dealing with back pain. And then we can end the video right there. So I would say CJ, were you gonna say something?
You should probably. Are we gonna get into how the McGill Big Three works?
Yeah, we can just talk about it. We'll just see where we go, but we'll get into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was also kind of get into when I went to a chiropractor. I had like an interesting discovery about my back or my body, I guess, as a whole. But let's do McGill Big Three.
Well, I mean, we can cover McGill Big Three really quick. It's basically you want to have perfect posture. You want to avoid spinal flexion at the lumbar and thoracic spine. You don't want to be going in and out of these massive changes in your spine, like, and think about touching your toes and loading that. That's the opposite of what he says. He's like, you do not want to do that. And a lot of people do exercises that you see that.
Something that's really cool that Stuart McGill does is he actually looks at spines under load. Like he gets spines from pigs, I believe. And they literally do all the tests that you can imagine. They make the spine go into flexion. They add load to it. They what's the type of load that's side to side like this? Shear. Yeah, they put shear forces into the spine. They make it go into extension. They load it from the top, and they study it over time and see what kind of changes occur in the spine. And basically, a big takeaway, and this is why McGill Big Three is so effective. You basically constantly want to use good posture, and you want to increase your strength and stability with good posture. So that's a big thing. I always see people, like, someone always complains about back pain, and I'm like, you're slouching. Like,
yeah, you're slouching, you have poor posture. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so you have to always be mindful about your posture. Never go into painful ranges of motion. Never ever go into flexion with your spine and hold it. I really like to tell people, like, when you stretch your hamstrings, just keep your stay in extension. Like, don't go into flexion with your spine. Just keep your back straight and stretch your hamstrings that way. And McGill Big Three, it's almost like ISO. It's something you can do every day, multiple times per day. And if you do it right, your back pain is going to decrease after. And going on walks, that's the thing. Going on frequent walks helps a lot too.
And the thing is, like, we put that in programming because we understand usually that it is something good to do, whether it's once or twice a week. We put it as a general strength circuit. You know, we have a lot of different general strength circuits that we use for injury prevention. And I think that's probably what makes us more different than anyone else is it's not this thing where it's, hey, we do 4x10 of this exercise 3 days a week. Like, you have a whole circuit dedicated to your feet. You have a whole circuit dedicated towards your ankle, towards your low back, towards whatever else. And we put that piece in there, understanding, hey, look, this has a very specific goal. Every one of these exercises is pulled from research from the top researcher in those areas. And there's multiple studies on it that show the outcomes are significant different with this modality versus without it. That's why we have it in there. And we don't leave any stones unturned. You know, we try to make sure that every single day you have a goal. There's a purpose why you're doing what you're doing. And those goals are going to make you better. They're going to make you more resilient. It's going to let you train harder, which is going to let you jump higher. So I think, again, that's why we love McGill Big Three. There's a reason why we do it. There's a reason why we preach it. CJ, you had a little bit of a different experience too, because you went to a chiro and they told you that you basically had a curved spine essentially, right? And then it was compressing. Is that correct?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can go ahead. You can talk about that.
Now, I don't know how much that has to do with the certain back pain that I had. And I would like to say what happened was once I came home from England and I continued our workouts, doing what I could do, and I would start progressing into other workouts really slowly, my back pain did eventually go away as I got stronger, including doing McGill Big Three and doing other things that was healthier, like not slouching and playing video games all day.
Yeah, and you are notorious for that.
yeah, especially when I was in England. I didn't really have much else to do. But anyway, yeah, that was a big part of it. So what was interesting is when I went to the chiropractor, yeah, you could see how misaligned I am. And physically, I would lean forward. My left arm is longer than
Hey, wait,
my
CJ,
right
CJ.
arm.
Cut off.
CJ. Yeah, you cut out for a second there. You said your left arm's
Um,
longer than your right arm. That's what we heard. We heard your left arm's longer than your right arm.
Yeah.
Which might be longer than
Basically,
something else we don't know. All right, jokes aside. All right, anyways, go on.
So yeah, you could also see that my chest kind of comes out a little bit more than this side of my chest. So basically, what happens when I stand on a scale, or if I stand up straight normally, I put like some really odd number of weight on my left side compared to my right side. So I think it was like the difference was like, I can't remember. It was like 8 to 12 pounds or something that was all on my left side. And it also makes a pretty big difference with any kind of exercise like deadlifts and squats. I can feel a lot more on my left leg versus my right leg. Left leg being my stronger leg, and that's probably because of my jump form kind of changed my body. But anyway, I was pretty freaked out about that, and I thought it was pretty interesting that I could be that uneven.
Symmetric.
Yeah. But basically, like going forward with that, I kind of we talked about it, and it was like, yeah, well, this is what happens when you do whatever certain sport. You can have that imbalance and then still continue to progress.
Mm-hmm.
Just keeping in mind, there might be like some certain things that you might think about during lifts, but basically, I was able to. I don't have back pain now. My back is great. I feel really strong. And unfortunately, we're in quarantine, and I haven't lifted in so long now, but we've been like on the up and up with I guess like training, and everything was feeling really, 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 really strong. So
yeah,
finish up.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Hopefully it doesn't come through later on, but I think you're progressing in the right direction. The at-home workouts are obviously still very difficult. I've heard you say you're fried multiple times, which is great. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want. It sucks that a lot of people are downplaying that, but at the end of the day, the goal is to come out of the hyperbolic time chamber a better athlete than we came in. So we want to make sure we're addressing all the physical qualities: speed, strength, mobility, coordination. I'm forgetting one. What's the last one? What is it? Speed, strength, coordination, mobility, and endurance. We want to make sure we address all of those in a specific way and still progress it out. And that's what we're doing. And I think it seems to be working. Isaiah's knees feel great. You feel like your every session's okay. But at the end of the day, if you were to really look at the nitty gritty of how you're doing, I think we objectively watch Isaiah and I, and we're like, dude, he's killing it. I don't know what's wrong with him. So it's fun to see. Hopefully, again, you keep adapting and you keep building in this training volume. And this might be a good way for you to come out of this and address a lot of the things that we don't have the luxury to address when we are pushing hard in the weight room. So it could end up being a better thing for everyone as a whole that are doing these at-home programs. Is we don't have the luxury to do pistols all the time because we're going to squat. We don't have luxury to do reverse Nordics or Nordic hamstring curls as much as we do because we're sprinting and we're jumping. And I guess we're doing those things as well now, but maybe we have more plyometric, or we have more Olympic weightlifting volume, or we have more deadlift volume and RDL volume. And with UCJ, I think one consideration that we've really had to make is figuring out where you can load heavily and where you can't load heavily. So for you, it's like, hey, look, we needed to play around with your squat stance because your hips are maybe shaped slightly differently. We had to play around with your deadlift and your hip height because you tend to be much more hip dominant in all your movements. And so we're not going to force you into a model that doesn't necessarily fit you well as an athlete. And it's not saying that we're going to ignore certain areas of your training, but we're going to, again, we don't want to leave no stones unturned, but we also want to maximize the areas that you are really good at, and the things that make you good. We want to ultimately maximize those areas as well. You know, we want to absolutely push those to the brink of redlining in every single way that we can, whether that's getting your deadlift as high as you can and pushing that up, or getting your reverse lunge as high as we can and pushing that up and breaking through walls, because we're trying to get you to a point where you have a 50-inch vertical. So we don't have the luxury to not push in those areas in a creative, intelligent, correct programmatically. So yeah, I don't know. I get into the nitty gritty of all that stuff and super amped about it because I'm such a nerd about it, and you guys don't know how much nerd goes into all of your programs. But yeah, so I'm excited. I think CJ is excited to keep improving. Isaiah is improving, and we'll see where you guys end up this year. I mean, it'll be fun. You guys will be competing against each other. Dunk League, baby's coming up.
For all this coronavirus stuff to end and just get back into the swing of things, dunk contests and sessions and gyms and all that. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so if I get a dunk league and other people from other squads or camps are asking me to help them, I just say no, right?
Yeah, only THP Strength, baby.
Okay, here's the best case scenario. You guys are in the finals, and who do I root for? Y'all just went silent. You guys were like, I don't know.
Root for both of us.
Yeah, perfect.
Just
clap every time.
Jump high. Just a good battle. That's what we want. I think anybody in the dunk world, honestly, like, you don't want to win against someone that's like doing bad. Like, you want everybody at the top of their game, and then you want to beat them. So like, you want everybody to be jumping high.
We could talk about CJ showing out in dunk league because I think people would be really interested in that. And maybe in another podcast we could talk about the specifics of that. I still think we should go episode by episode through it. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, like to it and stuff like that. That'd be pretty dope.
Yeah, but all right, Isaiah, send us off. I feel like we covered all the content we need to cover.
Yep.
So.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Again, this episode is going to be available on YouTube, on John's YouTube channel. I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes. We covered CJ's journey, and we went into depth about training with back pain. Hope y'all liked it. If you're on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. So make sure you subscribe to us in whatever platform you're on. And make sure you share it. Tag us in your stories that you're listening. We're going to do our best to get to as many people as possible. And other than that, guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Good luck with training. Take it easy, guys. Make sure you check out our website, THPStrength.com. Peace.
Oh, stop. Cool.